Welcome to my hometown away from home. I made this short film mostly during the time of lockdown in March and April due to the coronavirus. I hope you enjoy it and learn from it. So here we go. Approaching Rothenburg from the other side of a very famous scene called the Plumb Line. I'll show that to you in a minute. This is the imposing Kobelzeller Gate. It was the gate that was added to Rothenburg after an expansion in the late 1300s. Now I'm walking up a nice smooth road. Imagine you're a soldier, probably carrying about 80 pounds on your back, and you have to fight your way through this gate through numerous obstacles. Here's the shooting gallery. You got soldiers up here on the left and the right shooting down at you. Probably some light cannon fire. Not fun. You know, I've lived here for 21 years now, made this my European home base of operations. And I have to admit that I have never once walked around the entire circumference of Rothenburg, staying on the outside of the town, along the path and the road that follows the medieval town walls. I'm learning a lot, and I think you will too. The shape of the shooting holes in the walls and towers tells you much about what kind of weapon would have been used. In this case, a crossbow. If the enemy made it into the first layer of security, they found themselves in a round shooting gallery at the Spital Gate. Built in 1586, this was Rothenburg's answer to the new realities of cannon fire. They built this enormous casement. It's called the Spitaltor, the hospital gate, and it is enormous. It has a sloped stone floor, many shooting holes, as you can see on the right. Cannons were placed inside of each of those holes. You can imagine the soldiers, the citizens, the noise, and the blood defending Rothenburg, especially in the War of 1618 to 1648, the 30 Years' War. This would have been used again and again to defend Rothenburg. Thick stone on the right, that's the outside of town. Wood and plaster on the left. Now here's a good idea to increase your tax base. Ask the emperor, the top guy in charge, if you can use stones from the ancient castle, which is no longer in use, to encircle a part of town that wasn't protected before. Therefore, they have to pay protection money. That's increasing your tax base, medieval style. So the ramparts were where the citizen soldiers of Rothenburg would have protected the town, which they did successfully for more than 3 centuries using crossbows, bow and arrow, later muskets. This was very effective, kept the bad people out. Who were the bad people? Well, they were competing towns like Würzburg, Nuremberg, people who wanted what Rothenburg had. And then cannons changed all of that, forced Rothenburg to think again about its defenses. Double toll collection houses on one of the 4 imposing entrances into the city. This is the Red Tower. Those are gun slits there, many with pockmarks from ancient gunfire. So maybe you're kind of getting the idea why I love living here so much. I mean, this place is history. I've always loved history ever since I was a kid. And this place is just one big history museum, but it's all real. Rothenburg's history goes back about 900 years or more. In fact, they have evidence of people living here 10,000 years ago. But the Rothenburg that you're seeing, Rothenburg I'm going to show you, goes back to the 12th century when There was a castle that was built here to so-called protect a nearby trade route. And a town grew up around the castle, and the walls grew up around the town. Can you see how worn these sandstone stairs are? Can you imagine the thousands and thousands of footsteps that have created that over the centuries? Here's a tight little turn. That's my jacket rubbing up against the wall. I love the view, don't you? Rothenburg is so quiet. There are no tourists here. Germany remains on lockdown until at least April 20th. See how the clay shingles are held on? They're just laid across slats. They have this little lip that sticks out, and that holds them on. If I were to push on this, see, that's loose. That's the way they've done it for hundreds of years. So as I walk along the ramparts, you might see some names on the wall flashing by. These are names of people who contributed to Rothenburg for the rebuilding of the city after the devastation of World War II. You could symbolically buy a meter of the wall and they'd put your name on it. You'll find names here from all over the world. This is called the Powder Tower. So it was one of the towers where they kept the gunpowder. Gunpowder for the cannons and for the guns that they used to defend Rothenburg. And this is actually the hangman's house. It's the hangman's tower. And this was the official home of the executioner. See, in medieval times, people were very suspicious. They didn't want the bad energy of the hangman to be around them, but they also wanted to protect the hangman because he was needed, he was important. So here's where the hangman and probably his wife and 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 kids would have lived. And a fun little fact, that mask is not old. It was added during the time of tourism, probably to sell postcards, help a tour guide tell stories. It's called a pitch mask. So if I were a tour guide in the year 1920 instead of 2020, and I wanted to entertain my guest, I would tell them that the mask above me was used to pour hot oil down on the invaders' heads, just in case they got lucky enough to get across the drawbridge and that close to the town defenses. Of course, that's all made up, but still makes a good story. But still, there's a phrase in today's German that relates to this. The phrase is Gott pitch, and you'll hear people say this when they've had bad luck, like, say, a flat tire. Gott pitch. Bad luck. Yes. To get hot boiling oil poured down on your head would be bad luck. We're here now at the oldest part of the town wall. This part of the town wall was built when there was no town, just a castle. The Rothenburg, the Red Castle, above the Tauber, which is a river. Rothenburg. Ob der Tauber. And this wall was built under the castle and surrounding the castle. Built as early as the 1100s. And now there's just a short section of it left. Above it, a park. And again, an area of Rothenburg that 90 to 95% of the tourists who come here every year, they never see this, they don't know about it. See how the stones appear to have bellies? This was a technique used in the 12th century and earlier. They're called waist stones, like your waist, like a belly. And they were made that way to show strength, intimidation. We're coming up on the only part of the castle that still stands. I told you this castle dates back to the 12th century. This is the only part that's still here, and it's now a chapel. They think it was a chapel back then too. It's called the Blasius Chapel. So what you're looking at was built at least 900 years ago, early 1100s. The castle above the Tauber River, with the red section showing what's still standing. Green is what they think stood. And there is the chapel. And there you have it. Rothenburg ob der Tauber, a glimpse at the walls and towers of this amazing place. I hope that you can visit someday, and if you do, well, I just might happen to know a tour guide. Thanks again. Goodbye.